Hi guys, I needed to make some corrugated sheets for my O-gauge railway, and the stuff I've seen online is too thick. When you overlay it, it becomes very thick on the edges. Didn't look realistic at all. So I went back to my roots when we used to be in the film business, and we made crimping jigs very much like these that are standardly available on Amazon or eBay. It's important to get the material you use square, pre-cut to the right size before you crimp it. Otherwise, trying to crimp it after it's formed distorts the edge of the forming and it looks terrible. So always make sure when you do this, you make sure it's the exact size that you need. Obviously, when you crimp it, it reduces the actual width of the material, so you can use a tape which is 2 inches by approximately 3 inches, and that gives you roughly a 4x8 sheet. Here you can see me crimping the edge or cutting the edge, and it just distorts the edge, and that would take a lifetime to straighten out. Looks terrible. So always make sure you cut your material to size before you use it. Now I'm using tape here, which I found to be much better than foil. It's a little bit thicker. It has an adhesive on it, and I stick it down to a sheet of white paper, which gives it a little bit more rigidity, a little more thickness. And the paper itself is easy to stick if you want to stick sheets together. Overlapping and using a thin glue, it's very easy to stick them together. When you're laying the tape down, make sure you get the edge as accurately as you can. You don't want any white paper to show through on the edges. And as I said, it's better to do all the trimming and cutting before you do any of the forming with the crimping machine. Otherwise it's going to distort when you try and cut it. Now you might be able to find cards of different colour that will suit you better. But I use just plain white paper. It doesn't show through. It glues very easily to each other. Now in America I use a Gorilla Glue, but in Europe I'm not sure now what glues are available, but you need a thin clear glue to stick the sheets together. And because these are so thin, they look very realistic when they're glued together. Unlike the plastic formed pieces that I see online, way too thick, so when you overlap them, they're almost a 1/16 to an 1/8 of an inch thick on the edges, which is way out of scale. Now because the crimper reduces the size of the width of the material from 2 inches down to a little over 1.25 inches, it becomes very scale size. Here I'm cutting the length to an approximate 8-foot length of corrugated metal. Now you can see a white edge on the front there, which I trim off before I start crimping. The foil I used in the first demonstration was ordinary kitchen foil. It's very thin, and there are thicker versions available, at least in America, which are about 30 mils thick, and I haven't tried those yet, but I'm sure they'll work even better. As I say, when you line it into the machine, make sure it's as straight as possible, because if it's crooked, it'll come out crooked and look terrible. In fact, it'll be unusable. Now you see the white paper on the back and the silver finish on the top. Obviously, if you're going to use this in any O-gauge railway setup, you're going to be dirtying it down, distressing it, making it look rusty. All those things you can do with this with no problem at all. It takes paint pretty well. They are obviously more fragile than the plastic versions, the injection molded or formed plastic versions, but when you overlap them, they become much more scale-like. I mean, with the plastic versions, you could stick a cup of coffee on them, it wouldn't do any damage. Do that to these, and obviously you destroyed it. Now here what I've done is I've overlapped two pieces of aluminum together, two pieces of aluminum tape together, trimming it to size to see what happens. In fact, it turns out very well indeed. You want to get it as smooth as possible before you put it in the machine, and again, keep that edge straight so that when it goes into the machine it goes in straight and comes out straight. If it goes in crooked, it'll come out crooked. You can see it's a perfect sheet. That's a 12 by 4 sheet in scale. It's pretty rigid, but obviously you drop something on it, it will damage it. These are just the tests that I've been doing. Nothing's stuck down, nothing's glued down, and they will slightly bend if you don't do that. But obviously, when you're putting it on a roof or on a house structure or a fence even, you'll be gluing these to a substrate so they'll be nice and straight. Or crooked if you want them crooked. Anyway, I hope that's given you some food for thought. I hope you enjoyed the video, and look forward to seeing you again. Have a nice day.